welcome back to our yearly roundup of all the weird news that has happened in 2022. I'm back today with 2 more weird tales from the year just past. But as a reminder, this won't be your usual news roundup. This is strictly the stuff that makes you go, what? As quite frankly, the regular news is far too depressing. So instead we'll be exploring a few weird and wonderful stories that may have not made it into the regular newspaper. Now that's not to say these stories don't dally with the dark side, because sometimes they most definitely do. But there's also plenty of light-hearted strangeness, but don't worry, if anything is going to be hideously awful, then I'll give you a heads up first. So with the disclaimer out of the way, let's jump into June. But before we get into our first story, if you are new here, then hi, my name's Nikki, and I make podcasts, videos and TikToks about all sorts of weird stuff. So if you're into that, which I have a sneaking suspicion you might be, then please hit subscribe so we can hang out together again. And if you're not new here, then welcome back, old fiend. Nice to see you again. So for our first story, we're headed to somewhere that I like to spend a lot of my time lurking, and that's the creepy side of TikTok. For those of you that haven't yet sacrificed your lives to the short video sharing app, first of all, well done for being a much better human than most of us, and secondly, it's honestly where a lot of interesting things have cropped up over the year. So, well, I'm not telling you to go hang out there more often because it will 100% ruin your life, but it's got spooky stuff, and we like spooky stuff. So this video, which cropped up on my For You page, shows something rather disturbing. The user, who goes by the name Ghost Toast Tunes, who is a spooky side of TikTok kind of guy, you know, the ones that reshare stuff, well, he posted up the video, but I can't find a link to the original anywhere, and it seems the post has been removed on TikTok. I did, however, manage to find the video on YouTube, so I'll still show it to you, but wait a second, we'll get there in a little while. If you're listening to the podcast, I will describe the video for you and also leave the link if you want to watch it. So in the video, a man is sleeping on a sofa and he's woken up by the sound of something crashing and rattling about in his house. He gets up to check out the noise and walks out of the room. Upon his return, his Alexa device begins to talk to him. There's also a shadowy mist that appears behind him. Here's what the chatty entity had to say.
She was my wife.
Who was your wife? Who was your wife?
You took her from me.
I didn't take anyone. Who? Tell me who you want. You've got the wrong person.
I found her here.
I found her. Who? Who have you found? Use that device again. Tell me who. Tell me your name.
My wife.
My wife. Your wife isn't here. Can you tell me what your wife is called? Can you tell me her name? Do you think your wife is Stacey?
Teehee, 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 teehee.
I think we can all agree that that is quite the disturbing wake-up call, but he seems to deal with it quite well. I think I would just run away and probably burn my house down and never return. After the conversation comes to an end with the freaky and unsettling laugh from the Alexa device, the man decides to wisely unplug the device in case it suddenly comes back to life. The footage has been met with one of two responses from viewers who say this could easily be a glitch in the system, or perhaps something on the other side has worked out how to communicate through the device. So what do we reckon on this one? Is it a spooky portal communication tool, or has Jeffrey Bezos just worked out how to prank us all in our sleep? Let me know your thoughts. Now, our next story remains in the paranormal realm, but instead of a haunted Alexa device, this time we're going to be exploring a whole haunted apartment block. Residents of a block of flats in a Paris suburb started to complain when they started receiving visits from the undead. The hauntings were apparently so bad that they even requested to be rehoused as the situation had become an emergency. On May 23rd of this year, a letter was sent to the mayor by tenants of a housing block in the Blargy district who said they were fed up with strange noises, unexplained illness, lights flickering and wandering shadows spotted all around the apartment block. 10 inhabitants of the flats said they'd had enough of the strange goings-on and requested emergency rehousing as a result of the paranormal activity. The ghosts which are causing the problem seem to be dotted around on all floors of the building, and tenants say they refuse to go to a stairwell which has been reported as incredibly haunted. In the letter, they wrote, "All the tenants concerned by this incident will be able to justify what they have seen, namely ghosts appearing in our apartment and in our building. Following this, almost all the families are sick and their children are affected." One resident of the apartments, a woman named Giselle, said, "Chairs and plates move on their own. Light bulbs turn off and on their own. These are scary things. Today, my 14-year-old son is sleeping in my room because at night someone was tickling his feet." Other residents have said if this was just one tenant complaining, that the event would be able to be written off, but it's a whole building complaining, so they explained that it would be impossible for everyone to be making it up. Others living in the building say it's possessed by a demon and have even sought religious help, and on their advice, poured salt on doorways and entrances to stop the evil entity gaining access to their flat. A few tenants who have lived at the property for a while say that the building was fine until one of the elderly tenants, a 72-year-old man who was a self-proclaimed mystic, passed away in April of 2019. His own apartment has remained unlet since his death, so perhaps when he passed, he unleashed a load of spirits into the building that were otherwise happy to just talk to him. The mayor has said as the complaint is from so many people, it will be dealt with, saying, "We take things seriously because it is a suffering that is expressed. We will get in touch with the leaseor so he can inspect the building." Those at the town hall have said they don't think the problem is to do with ghosts though. They just think that the building is in such an awful state of disrepair that they're trying to get the building condemned. And can you blame them? The building is said to contain asbestos, which, as we know, is very harmful to health, and also, if the building is that run down, maybe the appearance of ghosts might be more to do with a hazard to health, like mould or a carbon monoxide leak, both of which have been held responsible for groups of people experiencing paranormal activity in the past. The building has already been condemned as part of wider city planning and is set to be demolished in 2030 to make way for newer social housing, but that's quite a way off yet. I hope that in the meantime that the situation is just ghosts and not actually something that will be harmful to the residents' health. So what do we reckon on this one? Is it a bunch of squatter spectres, or is there something a little more sinister going on here in terms of slum landlords? Let me know your thoughts. A religious university in Rome has discovered after carrying out a survey that Catholic exorcists feel under-supported and overworked by bishops. In an article which was first published by The Times, Italian exorcists have been struggling to keep up with demand and are finding themselves exhausted. At the 16th annual exorcism course held at the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum University, which is easy for me to say, was attended by 120 exorcists. The attendees remarked that the Pope, who has publicly supported exorcism practices, is partially responsible for the uptick in the amount of work they're receiving. According to the Times, this public endorsement, in which the Pope has said he wants to help those who are possessed by evil, has caused the huge boom in the requests for their assistance in those who are thought to be under the devil's spell. At the conference, the exorcists in attendance said they were needing far more support from the Catholic Church than they were receiving, suggesting that the assistance of psychologists would be useful to determine if the people they're exorcising are possessed or just mentally unwell. One exorcist, Father Giuseppe Bernardi, said after he completed a particularly tricky 9-hour exorcism on a woman who verbally and physically assaulted those in the room, said he was caught in a battle between the woman's mother and father, the former believing the girl was possessed and the latter thinking she was having a mental health episode. Father Bernardi then had to seek help from a psychologist, but he said the church didn't help him at all in seeking support for his theory that the girl was possessed. Other exorcists chimed in at the conference, saying they too had lacked support from bishops and were struggling to keep up with demand. There was also a serious concern that people had been asked to perform exorcisms on people suffering from COVID, and that the exorcists were having to put themselves in harm's way. The convention called for better support from the church with their work, and that the exorcists around the globe be treated better at their workplace. Let's hope they receive what they've asked for. So, what do we reckon on this one? Do you think the practice of exorcisms is outdated, or do you think the God-botherers should receive better protection? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for joining me for that selection of weird stories from 2022. I hope you enjoyed them. And if you did, there'll be more along soon, so make sure you're subscribed if you're not already to keep up with the series. If you're enjoying this little mini-series and what I make in general and you want it to continue, and maybe you've been listening for a while now, then please consider becoming a Patreon supporter like our executive Patreon producers, Amy, Christina, Jess, Karen, Kate, Kevin, Mary, Sally, Sam, Sarah and Veronica. And a huge thanks to all my other patrons too. As it's the season for giving, if you did just want to send a tip or a little Christmas gift for my Amazon wishlist, then I would massively appreciate that too, and I'll leave all the links in the show notes for that. An enormous thank you for even considering doing any of those things, as it means the absolute world when I get any notifications like that, or a surprise parcel through my door, so big squishes if you're part of that gang, you're the absolute bestest. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I've been Nikki Druce, and I'll see you ghouls next time for July.